if you have not heard, Google is planning on rapidly deploying its new Google AI mode. Now, you may think, what are you talking about? I always see when I Google something, there's a little AI summary at the top. This is not that. This is them taking it a step further. And, at the top of Google, there's images, news, that. There's actually going to be a new tab, AI mode, which my guess is it's going to end up being the default. And that's where things are going to be. And so really, it's going to be almost a conversational type interaction with search, so that instead of just searching, getting results, you're going to get that AI mode version, but you can continue to interact with it. You'll be able to continue to have a conversation and get more and more results around it. So the big key there is it's going to be more of a conversational interface versus what we think of traditionally with search, where you search for your thing and then you get your list of results and you kind of have to dig into it. Like I said, they've enhanced it already with kind of a brief summary of what that is up at the top, but this is going to go take it a step further. And that involves a whole bunch of enhancements like visual integrations into it. So it'll pull little thumbnail images up of the different things for different cues, visual cues for displaying different, ratings, information. It's going to bring that up. So it's going to bring all of that together using their new Gemini 2.0. I don't know how new Gemini 2.0 is, but it's integrated with Gemini 2.0. So it's going to be their frontier, one of their frontier models that they're going to be using for this. So it'll have the best in responses around it. Now, this is just starting to roll out in the US. And then obviously we'll continue going further. Now, I bring this up, one, to create awareness to it. So if all of a sudden you go to Google and you're like, what the heck is this? You're not caught off guard by it. But also to talk through some of the things that I think, as I read about the announcement, I wrestled with a little bit as I dug into what this actually means. Now, the first one has to do with some of the data usage and ethics around it. Now, anybody who knows Google or anything about search knows that a big part of, I was describing to my kids how search works today, because they're like, do you have to tell Google, you can be on Google? And I'm like, not really. They have basically these crawlers that crawl the internet and find everything and then organize and triage it. And of course, my daughter's like, ew, gross, like a, like a centipede. I'm like, well, I mean, kind of, yeah. But the whole thing with this is this starts to move into some interesting territory in that you think about Google search results. Pretty much everybody wants to show up in Google search results, right? I mean, I don't know many people who go, no, I create all this stuff and put it on the internet, but I don't want people to be able to find it. I mean, usually the point of creating it is so that it can be found. And people pay big bucks to be at the top. I mean, basically, if you're not on the first page of Google search, you don't exist, type of a thing. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. So people pay big bucks for this, which opens up the whole thing of, okay, but that means AI now has to not only just know what's there so it can show up in a search result, it has to now be able to take what you put out there and then further train its AI to be able to contextualize it to include it in this AI mode so that it becomes part of its description. Now, you might go, yes, and what's your point, Christopher? Well, my point with that is this opens up a new can of worms, because if you think about some of the big debate right now about ethical use in AI training data is not everybody's consenting to have their data used in AI training. This starts to blur that line a little bit, because you start to go, well, now maybe I have, let's say my Substack articles. Let's say I say those Substack articles are mine. I don't want that AI to be trained on that and then have it be, integrated into its responses. I don't want it to have my voice and my unique thoughts and all this other stuff helping train it. But now that's not just hey, I just don't want that incorporated into the AI training model. That now gets tied into, well, yeah, but then that's going to affect how its AI prioritizes and ranks you. And I don't know that they can actually turn that off, because you would have to completely opt out of Google's crawlers, Like you'd basically have to say, I want to be obsoleted on the internet to not be included in AI's training data, specifically with Google. Now, I'm not going to get into, so are they doing that on purpose to get around some of these? Look, I'm not sitting at the table with them. If I was, I would have some things to say about how they approach it. But I do think this does start to open up the conversation around consent and the balance between what should AI, like what rights do you really have for content that you create and put on the internet? And what are you giving up or holding on to by saying, okay, well, if search is going to move towards being all about AI, and AI is going to determine, if somebody looks for something, whether your stuff shows up or not is going to be dependent on how well it knows about your stuff. You can imagine some of the ethical lines it starts to cover where somebody says, well, I don't agree to training AI data on my stuff. And Google can have a little bit of a loophole now going, well, we're not officially training our data on this. We're just crawling it so it can be included in AI search. We don't necessarily have transparency into, well, how are you training it? Where? In what instances? How far does that go? Does that then make its way into Gemini as a whole? Is it limited just for search purposes? Like, how is that fragmented off, and how are you doing that? I don't have the answers to that, and I don't think anybody does at this point. But that's one of the data usage and ethics questions this raises for me as I go, well, boy, if we're really going to AI search, this changes things a lot, which gets me to my second point, the impact this is going to have on web traffic and SEO. Like I said, people spend millions, probably billions if you were to add it all up, on making sure that their stuff is you want to be the number one hit when this search term is searched, you want to be all this other stuff. Well, now as we move into AI, this is going to change things a bit, because now the way people find information about people could start to be different. Now, one of the things I think that is positive, I guess, about Google getting into this and leading the way with it is they really are the gold standard for search. I mean, there's a reason so many people invest in making sure they're at the top of the list of Google. But it does start to, raise, and this is a kind of a mix of the two, of like, what does that look like in a new world? Like, are people paying more ad revenue now or more ad dollars so that AI specifically recommends them when somebody asks? And now you're the first thing it recommends. I don't know, but it also affects web traffic in terms of, well, maybe if your website was at the top of the search results list, does that now get buried because AI is going to be more cohesive in its description of things, and now you're just one of the mix? Like, it's going to be a big behavior change for people. I mean, like I said, for the most part, people say if you don't make the first page of Google, you don't exist. This could change for the good or the worse. If nothing, it's going to be very different. So maybe if you're a local business, and it's like somebody searches this topic in this area, I would think with Google and the data they have, it's going to feel very similar. So if you were to say, who is I have no idea, plumber in the Milwaukee area, I would think the results it would give you would be much more comprehensive, but we don't know yet. And I think this is one of the things that I don't think we fully understand the impact this is going to have on web traffic and SEO. I mean, it's one of the things that, just as a similar example to give you a comparison to, one of the reasons so many local businesses freaked out when there was talk of the TikTok ban, was a lot of their foot traffic came from videos of people eating at their restaurant, or, sending videos of this and that. And it drove a lot of things. And so all of a sudden it changed the way people found out about them. And so, as you can imagine, people weren't going to the internet and going local hotspots, local dining hotspots on Google. They would go to TikTok and see, hey, what do I eat? Where do I eat here? And they'd watch videos of it. So of course you can see the behavior changed, people freaked out a little bit. This is the same kind of thing where it's like, well, how is this going to fit in? I don't have the answers to this yet, but it is something that if you are, whether you're a business owner, whether you're just a consumer, I think it is going to be important that we're aware that this shift is coming and it's going to hit us in a number of different ways. Now, this goes back to my third biggest concern with it, or just watch out, is the accuracy and trust of the information that we're getting. With the anthropomorphizing of AI, we already have an issue with people just believing what they're told. And then when all of a sudden a very powerful AI engine that sounds extremely human and talks in a very personalized manner tells you things, it just enhances the probability and the likelihood that you're going to believe what it says without actually double checking what it has to say. Now, this is especially problematic. I think it was maybe a month ago, I covered some research about how AI was performing in search, and its accuracy was not great. Perplexity was at the top of the list, but even they had like a 60% accuracy rate. I don't know when we get to this how well it's going to perform in terms of, how good is it at connecting the dots between somebody's ask and accurate results. Especially as people start getting into conversational things with search. How that's going to go, I don't know. And as people become just reliant on a summary of something, if you're looking for a specific restaurant or you're looking for a specific thing, you're probably not going to necessarily be quite as blindsided by this. But I've seen plenty of examples already where people have used AI search and have been frustrated because it's presented the wrong dates or it's told people the wrong, hours or whatever. And that's been very frustrating. I don't know how much Google's gone to actually clean up and ensure the accuracy and quality of its search as part of this. Now, I have to imagine they've had to do some work around it, because for them to be rolling this out on wide scale, let's just say Google hasn't had the best track record with some of its AI rollouts. So I don't know that I guess we'll see, but I don't know that they're really going to want to go big with Google AI search only to get just completely blown up as, it's giving the wrong results. It's saying the wrong things. It's pointing people in the wrong direction. I'm not sure how exactly that's going to happen. I also, going back to one of the transparency concerns, just last week, I talked about our inability to know how it's deciding what information it's giving. There's just not a real good way for transparency. And I think that's something even just business owners and things like that need to be aware of, is the fact that even if somebody says, oh, hey, you can pay to get your company boosted in AI search mode, so it'll be the recommendation of choice whenever these terms come into play. The thing is the data is clear. We aren't really good at figuring out how it comes to the conclusions it presents, and there's not going to be consistency with it. So I don't know that people are going to be able to deliver on that promise. Even if somebody comes and tells you, we can make sure that you will always be recommended when these terms are brought up, I'm just telling you, that's not a promise anybody really is going to be able to make because of how AI works. Now, I don't know exactly how well this is going to take off. I know that AI search has become much more popular. I know Perplexity has stolen a lot of attention from Google and just even search in general. So I do think this Google AI mode is their best, or one of their best efforts at kind of pulling people back and going, yeah, Perplexity is great, but hey, we've always been, or have been for, as long as I can remember, search. I mean, I remember the days before Google existed, but really once Google came on the scene, I mean, there's a reason people say I Googled it. And it's because maybe you use a different search engine sometimes, but for the most part, everybody went to Google. And so I do think this is their kind of attempt to say, nah, we're taking the reins back, and we will be the king of search, and we're going to adapt to AI search. We're going to be the leader in it. So again, some things to watch out for. And I'm hoping they'll release as part of this some of the data and some benchmarking on how they do, specifically on the accuracy of it. And I would love to see how they're using all the incredible data that they have, which truly is incredible. What they know and what they have, and just their ability to crawl the internet and find pretty much everything, and bring that together. So I actually think I'm actually happy that they're really kind of taking this seriously. It's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, the one thing though, going back to my first point, it's going to become very, very, I still talk to a lot of people who go, I don't want my data used in AI. I don't want it AI trained on me or what the stuff I create. That is going to become more and more problematic. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying you do need to understand the implications of this. I was talking to somebody just the other week ago about it, and I was saying, it's going to become a point where if AI doesn't know who you are, that's really going to affect you, professionally, or even potentially personally. I mean, what AI knows about you is going to matter a lot. And that's where I've covered things before where, like, the information AI has had on somebody is wrong. They try and correct it. The only way they can correct it is to eliminate them as a record from AI, which just has potential catastrophic consequences. So yeah, all that to say, I'm really, really interested to see how this plays out. But that's what's going on. Like I said, it's rolling out this week. So some of you may have it now. If you go to Google and you see AI mode up at the top, that is Google's new thing. It's just in the US now. So to my global folks, you'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Some of that's just largely due to the AI governance around it.